Did I just interrupt you?
No, I was just going to mention to catch up to speed. We were just, we had a few folks writing on the chat there of things that they'd like to maybe cover either today or moving forward in the sessions. One person mentioned bequests and reunion giving. Another mentioned crypto and new ways of giving. And a third person just now mentioned that they're new to the group and would love to subscribe to our blog. So I'll just mention really quick that if you go to imarketsmart.com, that's our website, and under Learn, you'll see our blog is one of the first, Learn being one of the kind of the headers of sorts. It's one of the first things you click on there and you're able to subscribe there. So definitely feel free. But with that, I'll hand it off to you, Greg.
Thanks for pitching in. Thank you, everybody. I don't know how many people are here today. It's hard for me to tell, but maybe put it in the chat how many, because I want to, Tricia, if you would help me with that, because I want to determine whether we're really going to break into groups or not. So that would be really helpful if you would do that, Tricia, or anybody actually. Okay, how to raise, okay, only 16, that's good because a lot of them are actually our staff. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how to raise amazing, extraordinary gifts without asking for them. Now, what's interesting about this is that Jeff is like our top salesperson at MarketSmart. We don't even call him a salesperson because he doesn't really sell. We call him a solutionist. Much like I look at fundraisers and I say fundraisers aren't really fundraising, they're facilitating giving, right? So the reason I bring up Jeff is because Jeff rarely, if ever, asks anybody to buy from us. In fact, almost every time people say to Jeff, all right, what's the next step? And he's like, well, most people usually ask for a contract at this point. And and then we go through that process, redlining and such. It's very collaborative. It's not, there's no closing at MarketSmart, and there's no closing when it comes to highly considered sales for products and services that are substantial, significant. So the same is probably from your perspective, and feel free to type in the chat if you've experienced that when you've really got a good relationship with somebody and you've been developing a gift and you've been helping them advance in the process, they often will begin to take control and tell you, yeah, I'm ready. Okay, this sounds good. What's the next step? And then you say, well, we got to write up a gift agreement. Make sure it's exactly what you want, and then you sign off on it. So if you disagree, write that in the chat as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is first some real quick housekeeping, and then we're going to get into talking about that topic. Remember, here's the housekeeping is, remember, anyone in your organization can get involved in these events. And even if you're a MarketSmart customer or a subscriber to the training with Dr. James. So please invite people. The more the merrier. I know it's summertime, so the group has been a little bit thinner recently, but I bet when everybody gets back to the office and such, it'll grow. So you can share this with other people, even board members and volunteers. At the end, there will be a survey. We always want feedback so that I can try and improve this. So I appreciate that. And there's always the reminder for the e-course subscribers that it is an annual subscription. So if your subscription's ending, just know that you'll get another invoice. But if you don't want it, just cancel. That's fine. But you remember that everybody in your organization can take the e-course. So it's one price, but 100 people can take it. We appreciate referrals. But if you know anybody who might benefit from either the e-course or from what we do for you at MarketSmart, please send them to our website or send them directly to us. We love it. Thank you very much. Hopefully that'll make you look good as well in their eyes. So, okay, I'm a little nervous about this, actually, today's presentation, because we're going to be talking about something that I've been working on for 2.5 years, believe it or not, now. And Dr. James keeps telling me, I mean, he likes what I've done, but he keeps telling me, you've got to Dr. Seuss it. Simple, simple, simple. So I'm working on that, and you're going to hear some interesting phrases that you might have heard in the course. And I'm going to refer to Dr. James a lot. This is going to take a while, maybe 15 minutes for me to explain everything before we actually get into the discussion. So I hope you're locked in, and then that this is interesting to you and such. So invitations, challenges. Dr. James talks about challenges a lot in the training, and I'll get into that. But I'm gonna use the word invitations instead. I don't know, the word challenges kind of is a bit crass to me. And you'll notice that a lot of these words sort of reflect what you might get when you are thinking about theater. You know, there's an invitation to the theater. There might be not a menu, but kind of an agenda. I forget what you call it, the playbill, telling you what's going to happen, act 1, act 2. And then, of course, the actors and such singers will have rehearsed. Well, this will hopefully resonate with you, but I'm going to ask you at the end, does this resonate after I've explained it? And what do you like about the overhaul that I'm trying to develop for the traditional process? Or what do you dislike? You know, this really came out because after reading Dr. James's 4 books and after creating the training course for him, which I was heavily involved in, I found that the traditional moves management process, which applied for maybe 30 years, doesn't quite sync up to the way donors are thinking and behaving right now. And plus, I'm not sure anybody's really teaching moves management the way that it was originally meant to be taught. I think it's gotten kind of warped by people, especially leadership. So with this, it's important to recognize that there are 5 key concepts that I pulled out of the training. And I won't go reading all this, but all of us who are here, I'm sure, know that low dollar fundraising is more transactional, while major gift fundraising, including planned gift fundraising, is more relational and collaborative. The next thing that is really the big part that I enjoyed from Dr. James' training is the fact that we're in advancement, because our goal should be to help a donor or supporter advance through their own hero story, so they realize they gain a victory and realize an enhanced identity, either publicly or privately, anonymously. So that's what advancement really is all about. It's about supporting supporters. And let me go through that real quick to remind people, or if you didn't get this far in the course yet, that Dr. James breaks it down based on the original thought leader and author about the hero's journey. He calls it the monomyth, was Joseph Campbell. Years ago, decades ago, came up with this, is that everybody, all of us, and you see this especially if you're a fan of what's it called, A Christmas Carol, you know, with Ebenezer Scrooge, right? Everybody goes through a series of episodes in their life where they want to gain a victory that enhances their identity. So I lay this out in terms of, as Dr. James did, and is looking at Star Wars. Some of you may not have ever seen it, or maybe you've just heard of it, of course. But Star Wars begins with a backstory, and it starts with these scrolling words on the screen telling you what's going on, so that you understand the setting and you start to meet the characters involved. And then there's this inciting incident where Princess Leia pops out of this little droid and says, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. You've got to help me save the universe and such. And he's there with Luke Skywalker. And of course, Luke doesn't know that he's the chosen one. He's the hero, but Obi-Wan does. So Obi-Wan says, hey, we've got to go off into the stars and the galaxy, and we've got to defeat Darth Vader and win a victory, and that'll enhance your identity. You'll be forever remembered as an amazing human being and such. And at first, Luke says no. He's like, I'm a farmer. I'm here on this planet. I've got my aunt and uncle taking care of me. I can't go. But then the Empire, Darth Vader sends these stormtroopers, and they go and they kill his aunt and uncle. And he's like, oh, I've got nothing here now. That's what Dr. James calls the inciting incident, which is what you're going to be part of. In fact, is you'll be part of an inciting incident to help almost alarm supporters that, hey, we need you, you know? So he went off into the galaxy, he fought the evil doers, destroyed their why am I forgetting what it's called? Someone type it into this thing. I'm getting old now. I forget what it's called.
Death Star.
Death Star, thank you, the planet. And then their resolution, they got the medals, everybody's clapping and all that. So breaking this down, what happens is for fundraisers is that your supporters' original identity is really three things. It comes down to their life story or history, the people or tribe, their community that they care about or that they came from, and their core values. And if that doesn't intersect and align with your cause, then not much is going to happen. So that's like a baseline foundation, which is important. And of course, if you're a MarketSmart customer, you know that's the kind of data that we collect, qualitative data. We believe and we know it's much, much better to get that data than to get big data, wealth screening, even prospect research. If you can get this kind of data from the donor, from the horse's mouth, so to speak, you're far, far ahead. And so are they, because now they're connecting the dots for themselves. So next is the opportunity to make a choice. That's where Luke was asked to go forth, and he did not at first, but then he did later on. And that's what you all do. Although I think that the way it's taught traditionally is not quite as transparent and fair as it should be. So when they make a choice, then you work together with them on a gift. You craft, you develop a gift, and you help them advance through the process of the decision-making so that they can gain that victory and see themselves with that enhanced identity, so they find meaning in their life. So I won't read through all of this, but it's essentially, the motivations fills out the backstory. That's why they care and who inspired them and such. Then your job, your role is to help them gain alignment with your programs and organizational capabilities. So let's call the backstory is like the why, while the setting, the gaining of alignment is where you start to understand their what. And then eventually you're going to get to the how, like how they're going to do it. But there could be characters in their story that you'll need to know. It could be their advisors, their wealth manager, their attorney, their CPA, their wife, their husband, their significant other, their children, Finally, you're going to want to reflect their motivations and their interests in an ask. I don't really like that phrase. I don't like the phrase solicitations either. I prefer proposal, but that's me splitting hairs a little bit. And the timing of your offering of a proposal is key, because if you propose that they give when the timing's wrong, you're going to be met with a lot of pushback, right? So finally, you get into stewardship, where you communicate the value that they received, and your hope is that they say that they are seen, they feel that this victory will help them be seen as the kind of person who does things like this because of the alignment with their life story, their community, their values. And then finally, if you want a chance at getting another gift, and if you want to do the right thing, you've got to express your gratitude as an organization and individually, so that and help the person recognize that they are a member of the community. They are embraced by your community. They belong. They're revered, right? So that they say this was totally worth it. I want to do it again, or I want to tell my friends to do it who also have assets and such. So again, this is the why, the what, and the how. I know I moved through, that's like a whole book from Dr. James. I moved through that really quickly, but this is the process scientifically proven by Dr. James that works best. It's advancement and development, helping people move forward in their own hero story and helping them develop and craft proposals that work for them. All right, next is an important component that Dr. James also talks about in one of the books and his training, is that although fundraisers it's not as easy for them to position themselves as a guide and sage. Lawyers, doctors, CPAs, wealth managers, like they almost automatically get that credibility, and that their credentialing for, it's more accepted. For instance, a CPA, people get that, but they're not quite sure what a CFRE means, so it makes it harder for you. But Dr. James says that it's your job to take that position and to sort of prove to people that you are a counselor, advisor, and a sage who can help them advance their hero story. It falls into what I was saying before, is that people want support through this process, not crass solicitations. And that's a challenge because often leadership or program staff, administrators want you to make solicitations. They don't want to hear about how the sausage gets made. They don't want to hear about how you're supporting people. They just want you to go visit people and ask. In too many cases, hopefully that's not the case for you. But and this guy Jim Stovall, he's not with us anymore, but he was an Olympic wrestler, and he wrote a whole bunch of books, and he became a famous motivational speaker. And he says it's a rare individual who wants to truly listen enough to understand our philanthropic goals and help us make them a reality. This is what philanthropists are really looking for. So when you find someone and you're transparent and they understand what you're doing together and the position that you've taken in order to support them, then you need to go and develop a strategy for them on their behalf. And strategic thinking is exponentially more important in this job, in this role, according to Dr. James' research. And I've heard it so many times from fundraisers who are really good at this, that they spend more time on strategy and strategic thinking than they do on activities. So in other words, you don't need as many visits if you are transparent with people who accept you as their sage, and then you develop amazing strategies for helping them advance. So in other words, finally asking or proposing to someone requires strategic thinking. Hopefully you didn't do it on a whim, or same with asking for a bank loan and such. All right, finally, what Dr. James says is you've got to modernize your metrics. And that's how I'm going to wrap this up today. Because the metrics I think a lot of organizations ask their staff to track, they really satisfy administrators. They don't really help the donor. We want to develop metrics that help us understand the donor and where they reside in their consideration continuum and in their story advancement process. And then through understanding where they are, not how many visits you've made and how many solicitations. That's all for the administrator. And I guess if you have to capture that, go ahead and capture it. But what's really important is, where does the donor reside in their consideration continuum? Are they advancing or moving themselves forward thanks to your support? And how fast or slow are they doing that? And then that helps you identify what stages they're stuck at and what constriction points need to be relieved and alleviated. Okay, all right, so that's enough on Dr. James's stuff. Now I'm going to put it together with what I've developed to see whether you like it or don't. This is essentially, I've decided in my ultimate egomaniacal wisdom that the system that operates today is essentially DOS for a lot of major gifts teams, and we want to give it an upgrade, right? So in my effort to Dr. Seuss this with Dr. James's admonitions, is that there's really three big steps, and each one has different number of points involved. So like preliminary qualification has 5 components. Complete qualification has 4, and caseload management just has 3. We don't talk about identification, prospect identification at all really at MarketSmart, because we don't think it's that important. We think qualification, which is broken into 2 separate things, is more important, and I'll get into that. So preliminary qualification, well, maybe I'll back up here and say that the old process, the traditional process, many of you have probably encountered and still looks like this, essentially, where someone identifies donors that you should have in your caseload. They put them in your caseload, and then they say, go get them. And you have to go get a meeting. You have to qualify them, which the research shows that only 1/3 end up being qualified. So 2/3 of the ones put in your caseload on average are not qualified, even if that means they're just not ready. But oftentimes they don't really have the wealth that you think or the passion, which again is data that you can generally only get, or I should say willingness to even give assets. You can't buy that data. And then you have to cultivate the relationship and get to the solicitation and all that. I say at the very least, we need to put a middle step here, which essentially is what our software does, which is preliminary qualification. And then we automate the cultivation, as most of you know. So we break this into, like, this is what we do for you if you're working with us, and this is what you do once you have completely qualified somebody. I think this is a more fair way to go about things. It gives space and control to the donor, it gives them the control to decide whether they actually want to be in your caseload and such. So it's more fair, and the bottom line is in our case studies, we see that the lifetime value, the repeat donor, the retention rates just go up substantially when you break apart the process this way. And especially it makes fundraisers, major gifts, legacy gift officers much happier, because they are no longer chasing as many wild geese and false positives. So taking that old traditional approach and then moving it, adding space for our approach in the middle. What I did here was I just am aligning it with Dr. James' stuff, because this is what you're thinking of, but this is the way Dr. James believes we should see the donor, is that they're trying to win a victory and enhance their identity. So it's important for us to understand where the donor resides in their consideration continuum. And if they're essentially at the Y stage, where you're helping them recount their original identity, or they're recounting it to you and helping you understand why they care. And then you help them understand what they might want to give to and how. Finally, it's interesting, at the top of the meeting, folks, y'all were like, well, how do we talk about crypto giving, and how do we talk about donor advised fund giving, and that's great. We can work on all that. It's just that that's the very end of the process. If you don't help people understand their why and help them gain alignment with the what, it really won't matter. I know it's easy to focus on, you want to focus on the end. That's the exciting part, in fact. But this is how making the sausage is more important, and doing it right here makes for a tasty sausage. You can't eat it until you understand how to make it. All right. So let's move ahead, because it's taken a little bit too long, I can tell. And so preliminary qualification, I said, breaks into five points. And it's really that, and this is what you get out of our dashboard through our engagement and our surveys and the automated cultivation, is it helps you understand whether or not people are engaged, whether or not they have a passionate life story, reason, values, reason, or community tribe-oriented reason for giving, whether they say the timing is right to engage and consider working with you on a gift, whether they've granted you permission to engage them further, especially with automated cultivation, and then whether they believe, not the well screening, but whether they believe they have capacity and would like to share it. So we ask that by asking people, do you have assets you would like to share? And then we run down the list in our survey of which assets and where are you in the consideration continuum for considering sharing that. So I break this into, and that's the beginning of the process, but I break the whole thing down into 7 challenges, or let's call them invitations, where we invite people to take a survey and provide feedback. That's really the first challenge. While, in Dr. James' research, he was focusing on Luke, and Luke getting that one challenge, go off and gain a victory. Well, there's actually multiple challenges in this process, multiple invitations. And the first is to invite people to take a survey. The second one is to invite them to opt in to the cultivation. So if you're a customer, we ask that in the survey, and we inspire people to opt in for cultivation, because most are not ready to meet with you right away, but some of them will be. The whole key to this and preliminary qualification, which is what our system does, is to help you understand the timing, their passion, their engagement, whether or not they have capacity and such. And that gets revealed in your dashboard, showing that people are ready for you to reach out to them. So the next challenge is not actually to challenge them to meet with you, but assuming that they did meet with you or talk to you, the next challenge is actually to gain permission for you to reach out to them again. See, on your first call, it may not actually be necessary or fruitful for you to meet with them. If you do try to meet with them, they'll often say no. They need to trust you first. So it's important to recognize that it's okay to have multiple conversations with people before you challenge them to finally meet with you. So in other words, and what I mean is by talking about giving. So the first challenge is actually to gain permission that they'll allow you to follow up with them. And it's best to ask them when. Like, when do you want me, next quarter, next month, next week? Let's put it on the calendar. So then finally, you want to meet with them one-on-one, and you want some degree of transparency where they know that you're a facilitator and that you want to help them understand your position as a guide and sage. And you could do that by offering them a invitation, which I won't get into now because we did a whole mastermind mixer on this. So I think what'll happen is, thank you, Trisha, is putting the video link in there for the previous mastermind mixer where we talked about this invitation. All right, so that's preliminary qualification. Like, people are helping you recognize their readiness to engage with you more deeply. Now, you're going to want to completely qualify them for your caseload. Not your prospect researcher. They're not going to be able to completely qualify someone for your caseload, so they really shouldn't assign you people for your caseload. They might, especially if they're using our system, assign them based on readiness and recency of engagement and all the other stuff we talked about in preliminary qualification. But to completely qualify someone, first, you need to make outreach to them. You need to conduct deeper discovery, probably through a meeting, a lunch meeting, dinner, maybe at their home, at your office. You need to make a formal invitation to your caseload, letting them know, and this is what that other video is about, letting them know transparently what you're talking about. This way you take away, there's no ambush ask or drive-by solicitation. This is a very intentional and purposeful invitation, inviting them to develop and craft a gift with you. And once they say, yeah, okay, I'd like that, then you promise to develop a strategy for them to get more deeply involved and discover what organization capabilities or operations or opportunities would they be interested in. So that invitation is your fifth challenge, where you invite someone to agree to accept a strategy that you develop to help them move themselves forward. Now, they can always make tweaks to it and say it doesn't really fit for them. But the idea is that the fifth challenge is that they accept your invitation to go on this journey with them. And then the sixth challenge is that you invite them to view a proposal and collaborate with you on it. Through the collaboration, and this is what Jeff does, he with new customers, he collaborates on proposals and they craft it. This is why he doesn't need to ask them to buy from us, but he might encourage, right? And same with you, is that, okay, once the proposal's out there and all the details are, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, at some point it's like, hey, so what do you think? I mean, here's the reasons it aligns with your life story, values, community. Remember that, and here's the victory we both believe you'll gain and the enhanced identity. So, I'm here to encourage you. Let's go forward. Why not? Right? But it's not really a hardcore kind of ask. So here's the final part of this, is that I broke this down into 10, sort of a checklist for advancement. And I'm curious, forgive me, because I'm trying to get it all on one page. It's a little small, but this aligns mostly with those last 4 challenges, I guess it is that the 4 challenges that they agreed to meet with you. They shared their original identity and their deep motivations and expressed to you why they care, who they care about and what values are important, and you listened is important. Then the next step in advancement is, okay, now that I understand them, did they express to me their interests of what specific programs or organizational capabilities they might be interested in sharing money to support, right? So when they reach that stage, that's like the next stage, and you're like, check, wow, okay, look at how far we're going here. The 5th stage is actually, I think, or challenge, is the most important part of the whole process. I think if you get the invitation right, and they agree to work with you on a value exchange where they've accepted your invitation and agreed to work with you as their counselor and guide on an exchange of money for some sort of value or victory and enhanced identity that they seek, if they agree to go on that journey with you, you're like 85, 95% of the way there. But now you have to actually go through the next part, which is sort of developing a menu, working on this, collaborating on the giving options to understand what this proposal could look like, right? So creating a menu and going back and forth on giving options, you're actually developing the proposal to a degree. But the next part is when you hear them express the value they believe they'll gain from sharing. And you have to be really quiet and listen for this so that you can hear that they recognize the victory that they'll gain and the enhanced identity that they'll benefit from. A lot of times, if you're quiet, and in fact, with this, I could speak more about for Jeff and me, like if we're quote unquote selling a new customer on our system, oftentimes I'll say, so what do you see? What do you see from this, ma'am? You know, sir, what do you see the benefits of this be? And they'll tell us exactly, or they'll say, well, I'm not sure. And then we know we've got to kind of go backwards and do some more work. Or maybe it means there isn't a fit and we need to say goodbye to one another and help, in your case, help them find a charity that has the organizational capabilities that meet their needs. You know, you can't, every fish is not a good fish, unfortunately, you know, and if you're actually being a better partner by helping them move on. So the rehearsal, I mean, if the invitation gets you 85, 95% of the way, the rehearsal gets you like 99% of the way there. So when you check that box and you've heard them express and tell you why they told their wealth advisor why they're doing this and such, you know that you're like 99% of the way there. And then that's when you take the menu and everything you've created and their own words of why this will benefit them in the rehearsal, and you put it into a true, serious proposal, which your leadership would probably call a solicitation. When they've accepted that, they've advanced again to the next stage. And notice how this is all based on whether they have done something, not whether you've done an activity, it's whether they have moved themselves forward in the process. So that takes you to the agreement. Did they agree and did they transfer the funds? Or is it a multi-year pledge? Did they agree to that? That's the final challenge 7, where you're encouraging them, not necessarily boldly or ambush wise soliciting in a crass manner. It doesn't need to be a high wire act is what I'm saying. And it shouldn't be. And then there's always stewardship. You don't want to forget stewardship is like, did you hear that they believe they gained the victory that they originally sought? Did they express that? And finally, did they express that they benefited from an enhanced identity? Did they say, yeah, this is who I am, and in fact, I want to do it again? All right, so I went really fast. 2.5 years of thought and design. Let me come out of this and see some smiles. I see some perplexed looks. I see some possible anger, resentment. I don't know. Who wants to be brave and tell me what they think?
I think the way you put it in the term of moves, I'm always careful not to use the term moves management, but folks are moving along, and just the way you quickly summarize it, they're moving themselves, and we're the guides that know when certain things have happened. Like a coach, you're getting to the next step, and it explains things in a way that makes sense. And it goes back to the hero story and their values. And I can just underline it because we've gone through leadership change at our organization where the phones were dead for the first 6 months of the year and individuals weren't even engaged. Changes have occurred. They've heard what the change is. And guess what? The calls are coming in for people to say, I need to make my gift, so they've gotten a message. And so now they've already opted in, and there's something in that already where they're seeing themselves as being a hero to the institution by making these gifts, which then invite these other conversations. And everything that you've explained is, how do they see this happening? What values were triggered to make that first gift? And these are just first gifts. These can lead to all these other things when they see the organization doing well at what they've done, opting in, living out their values and going through it and taking it out of us making something happen, more them making something happen, us being there, the sage, the guide, the Sherpa, the philanthropic advisor, if you will, that helps them invest well in the organization of their choice once they're excited about it.
Thank you, Devin. I have thoughts on that, but I want to make sure anybody else have thoughts, disagreements, punch holes in this.
So Greg, I just want to say, first of all, hello, everybody. I think this model is great. I think it's just what the sector needs. And this is my own opinion with what I'm about to say, with the changing of environment, changing of demographic. I think people want to be, to your point, a lot more engaged. And I'm going to share a very quick story. I was meeting with a donor of color here about 2 weeks ago. Very wealthy lady. She has about 7 different businesses. And she could not, what I heard from her for the first, this was supposed to be an hour meeting. The meeting took about 3 hours. But the first 2.5 hours, it was her trying to find an entry point into the organization. She couldn't see herself in our mission, right? And so I listened to all of it. I agree with a lot of things that she said. And I said, well, look, and this is when kind of the scales fell and things changed. I said, what would a partnership look like to you? When I said that, she immediately, her whole tone changed. Her whole tone changed. She started lining out what it meant to her, what it looked like to her. She said, Christopher, I know you want my contacts. You want to do things with me. She said, but it got to be meaningful for me as well. So we kind of got through that, and then we worked it out. She said to me, I will give you X and I'll do this for you. But here's what got me though. It wasn't even about what she gave me. Here's what got me. Here's the kicker. As we got ready to depart, she said, Christopher, all I wanted was a conversation and to be heard. This is what this lady said. She could write a 7-figure gift, no problem. She said, I wanted to be heard. So I walked away from that. But again, it takes the right, again, I'm not saying I'm some Moses or something like that, but what I am saying is that you cannot rush the donor, right? And I think you have to listen. And as advisors, if you go in, if you're on this side of it, if you're trying to go in and rush the donor, they're not going to have a good experience. This one, she wanted to be heard, and she was trying to find a way in, right? So I think the model that you're presenting, at least for me, it allows all of that. So thank you.
Just one thing to add is I've taught our team, and they'll laugh because they're on the call. I say, give your customer a magic wand, right? So this is a foolproof exercise where, and you can do it too. Say to them, imagine, and hold a pen and even give it to them and say, imagine this is a magic wand and you could have the entry, the partnership, you could have what you want from me today and from our organization in the future. Here it is. What is it? Just wipe the slate clean. What is it that you want? It's a very powerful tool. And then, of course, and you all know this, then you've got to really be quiet. I know Chris well, been at St. Jude's a long time. they have a lot of donors. We all know St. Jude's, but they begin mostly transactionally. They've got the TV ads and they got the direct mail, right? So moving from transactional to relational is what Chris helped this woman do, from what I heard. And it basically took 2.5 hours, 3 hours of listening and giving her a magic wand. So Chris, you know, you're one of my favorites, so I can't brag on you enough. But yeah, and thanks so any other thoughts? Again, like, do you think this would blow up in our faces if you had those 12 check boxes and they were on your desk for each donor? Like, do you think your boss would be like, what is this garbage? I just need you to go on more visits.
I think this is just a little nitpick comment. The process I worked at another institution, and honestly, this is very similar to what the consultant. The verbiage is a little bit different, but you know, I mean, I think if you read Cialdini too, I don't know if you've read him.
Of course,
influence. You know, and he rewrote his book because he said, "Oh my God, people are abusing their customers, taking advantage of them. So I have to revise my book." But what I really meant to say was, instead of exchange of money, would say exchange of assets.
Yeah.
But maybe you want it to say money because obviously that's what we think of, but and I know everybody here understands that, but obviously we know really the larger gifts are likely to come from their assets as opposed to cash. But
got it. Good point. Who else?
I have to say just this one thing. Sorry, Gav, because when you said, will it blow up? No, I don't think it's going to blow up, because folks look at us and they immediately say, well, that's fundraising, that's you guys. And we use the terms moves management, donor qualification, research. It's all the scientific, I hate to say it, mumbo jumbo. And it is the sauce, they don't want to deal with it, but go out and metrics, go meet, check these boxes. To come back and have all the terminology that you have and say, well, let's talk about this. Because we literally talked about, like Chris, you're talking about a conversation we need to have with the donor next week. And the money part's nothing, because we need to know what she's really passionate about. We have some hunches, but we can only guess, and we basically just have to invite a conversation. So coming back to board members and individuals like that, say, we'll go out and do this. We'll say, well, hear you what we I'm not so sure I know what this person's most passionate about our organization, and you were a classmate of this person. Can you give me some clues here on these things? And when they see all the stuff that you have there written out in common language, and people say, oh yeah, we were in the same fraternity together, or we're in the sports team together, or I saw them get up and give a speech, when we were in college days or something like that. And I say, could we go on a luncheon together and learn more about this? And when they see the quote proposal part is way down the road, and we can't even, it's like building a building without having done the architectural renderings, getting the permits, grading the land. And okay, we'll get to the point of that, but can you help me get these other things? Can we do this together? Or is there someone better? And then we just come back and say, now we've got what we need. We can lay the foundation. We can put up the walls now, but we can't do it to these other things. And the other things can be done by other individuals. It's not just us.
Great points.
I can say from sort of pitching our services and talking to different leadership, maybe part of the challenge you meet in a relational approach like this is just the impatience of sorts of others, in terms of it is the truth that going about it that way as described takes time. It will take, you will have a lot of fruit to bear eventually, but you have to build up essentially a portfolio of people who make it through 1, 2, 3, 4, stay. If they drop off, and build up a portfolio of people who truly all have decided they want to be in contact with you, not that you have just decided that you want to be in contact with them. And so that's something that you run into. And I think part of the way to combat that is you have to measure data and collect data at all parts of that process to really show those who are not as much of a believer in the process that it is working. The pieces are moving through the funnel, and eventually, as you get those wins, really highlighting them, saying, look, just like you telling that story, like Chris told to your boss or to whoever is the skeptic, to say, look, it takes time, but it bears fruit. And in the end, that's the challenge for any business too. Any one of us, we can all chase small transactional opportunities and get quick wins, but the biggest opportunities will take time to nurture, and relationships need to be built. And so, yeah, I think that's part of the pushback. I think another part of the pushback is, just like we're saying, a lot of what's described here takes personal relationships, and there's only so many, frontline fundraisers that can be hired. There's only so many, people that can be engaged this way. And I think part of the challenge in that regard, whether you choose MarketSmart or not, is finding a way, even though it's not as good as a person reaching out, to use marketing to fill the gap. You have to, in order to actually make everyone feel heard. There's no other way. And that is a sort of a selfish plug for us, but it's also just a selfish plug for, you, in terms of getting more budget for marketing in general.
Appreciate that, Jeff. We appreciate that you do it right. I'm going to wrap up with the next few minutes, is that I have begun to develop a process. I don't think it's a beautiful graphic, but it's a graphic that I think, when you're making the invitation, inviting someone to be part of your caseload, I feel like you almost need a graphic to be able to say to them, this is our process. This is what we've found that most donors really enjoy and appreciate. And like right now, I'm making the invitation to work with you, and you can say no today. But before you do, I just hope you'll understand, or let me explain, that this process includes understanding and really learning, hearing, listening about you, your motivations, interests, what you want, what you need, what you desire, and trying to find alignment with what you want and with what we can supply. So there's going to be could be a year or two of exploration. And then I'm going to develop a proposal, and we're going to look at it together. And then we'll refine it together. And if it's right for you, then you'll decide, with no pressure from me, that it's worthwhile to move forward and share, so you can find more meaning in your life. So with the couple minutes that we have left, I guess I'm just curious what you all think about that as part of this process, or sharing something like that. Or do you already do that? Everybody's on mute.
So Greg, I don't want to double speak, but I'm sorry, but yeah, I do this, but I think something like this to help people who are, and I say this respectfully, who are transactional fundraisers and people that are in leadership, I think this would be a good guide for them. I would definitely use this. I would have this at my desk. I would absolutely, and explain it. So yes.
Catherine.
Greg, thank you so much. I've been following your work for years. And this is definitely a culmination of what I've been hearing you say in pieces over a long time. Where I'm at and coming in today is thinking about, I love the whole concept about the donor story and the hero. And it takes more than just that fundraiser or gift officer or philanthropy facilitator or whatever we want to call ourselves, to be able to work in partnership with a person, I'm at a university. I need information from faculty and administration about what their needs are so that I can go out and find a person who cares about whether it's science programming or internships or whatever it is, and invite them to partner with us. And then, as I think Christopher said, somebody you were talking to and they just wanted to be heard, and what do they want back? How do they want to be recognized? How do they want their hero story shared by the institution? And that again takes a good partnership with your university communications or whatever your communications department is. And those are two pieces that our institution is struggling building our partnerships internally to be able to effectively do that with our donors. So if you another time could talk more about that, I would love to hear about that.
So could you please restate that, just because
Yep.
yeah, like specifically, I'm going to give you the magic wand.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking out loud. To be able to work effectively with the donors and developing their role as a hero, the institution, the recipient institution, needs to be well prepared as a partner. It can't just be the gift officer fundraiser connecting.
It's a team effort.
Behind, yes, the rest of the team needs to be unified communications, unified with the departments that would be using the funding.
Yeah.
And how to work institutionally to build those relationships so that we can go out and be our best at finding the donor partners or the venture capitalists for our charities.
I'll tell you, Catherine, it's so interesting. And the parallels, by the way, between your business and ours are like this, just so you know, right?
Yeah.
We, how do I say this? I often hear sad stories from fundraisers that they can't get stories from the field, from program staff. And that for whatever reason, there's an iron curtain put up between the programs and the fundraisers, as if y'all are dirty and have dirt on your hands. Well, hold on. So Jeff, for example, at MarketSmart is always saying to, like, every meeting, he says, I need more stories. Give me more stories of success from our customers, more stories, more stories, need more stories. Right? So you're like the same. And I think what that means is, and it begins with the leadership, is allowing you all to, God, I lost, ever since I got ChatGPT, I can't remember words because I don't know, I'm letting it do a lot of my writing. And then I'm editing, so I'm losing my synonyms. Isn't that weird? I'm noticing either that or I'm just getting older. I turned 54 last week. So, yeah, we need to make sure that everybody's working together as a team. So we started a Slack channel where whenever somebody hears a story from a customer of success, of them landing a great gift that came out of our system, then tell the story in the system, in our Slack channel, so Jeff gets it. So yeah, I mean, I'm foreshadowing I'm thinking about how to solve your problem and how to do the next mixer, Catherine. I'm happy to, by the way, to stay on because this conversation is just really invigorating to me. So I'm going to keep going another 10 minutes. But yes, it's essential that the organization support the fundraisers who are supporting the donors' decision-making. They need to hear stories. Donors especially want to see themselves as someone who gives to causes like this because, it's who I am and it's where I belong. And these are my people, right? These are the things people are saying to themselves. But you can't help them see themselves as belonging without those stories. Jen.
Yeah, so to your point, I'll just illustrate this a little bit with the parallel here. I'm a customer success manager with MarketSmart, but customer success is not solely me. It's actually all of MarketSmart. It's every interaction that customers and prospective customers have with us, because each team is representative of the whole of MarketSmart. And so I really appreciate you, Catherine, sharing your challenge, because I think Greg's right. It does begin with leadership, but the most compelling thing you can probably provide is the why you need this support. And the why is because and someone, I forget who it was, cited Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. And there are 6 main concepts or themes that will be very influential to a person. One of those is social norms. So if I have stories about a donor who went out into the field and did some amazing work, or saw some amazing work and funded building a small well that now, you know, provides cleaner water to an entire village, there are going to be other people who will see themselves in that story and see that, oh, other people are doing this. It just builds into that social norm. It also builds into the trust that they are going to have with your organization, that you guys are doing great things and that they can be a part of that. So I would just recommend, you know, we have a ton of materials online about this too, but just really explaining why it is so vital that there is that support from these other teams. I know we sort of looked at marketing specifically and, you know, storytelling, but it's everywhere. I mean, you guys, I'm sure know it, and I hear it all the time. If a donor has a really poor interaction with even, you know, your online system for donating, and then they call, you know, donor services and they have a bad interaction, that could really throw off the course of that relationship. So everyone is responsible for the success of a donor relationship. I just wanted to add that.
If I was going to say, on my end, I run into this in terms of I might meet a fundraiser that loves our system, but their marketing and comms team or their operations team aren't, you know, on board, not even really because they do or don't believe in the system. They're just sort of averse to change or to, you know, to sort of teaming up, you know, with fundraising. And at times is sort of, I don't know, maybe it isn't exactly how I want to, you know, frame it, or you may not, but at times you kind of have to sort of say, well, what can I actually provide to them? You know, as much as I need them and the donor needs them and all these altruistic things, at the end of the day, they're going to say, what's in it for me at the end of the day? And at times, it's sometimes not actually clearly stated just how much value there is for them to gain. You know, sometimes it's framing it as, look, we've put you know, all your time and specialty and the money that we put into building these programs, developing, you know, even these videos and things like that. It's all really the ROI to be gained from that input is in getting it in front of our donors and using it as a tool to get them to give more money. I'm just trying to make sure that your hard work doesn't get just put to no use at all, other than just, you know, a quick video that was on Facebook. We could raise millions of dollars with these stories. At times, you know, when talking to the annual fund and transactional people, it's to say, look, you're already asking them for money. That's not going to stop. You're going to keep soliciting them. What if we could, though, get more people to even make a low dollar gift if we added this additional angle where we were asking for their opinion, for their story, for their, you know, their input, not just their money? You know, don't you think there's people out there that aren't ready to give you the money, but would give you their opinion? And sharing these stories and et cetera would help us do that. You know, at times for the data and CRM people, it's, you know, we've invested all this money in prioritizing our list, and yet we only have me and, you know, so-and-so reaching out to them. We can't reach everyone. We have to facilitate a marketing process, or all of your, you know, hard work, again, it's for nothing really if we only touch 10 people or whatever, 100 people, 250 people out of the 10,000 we screened or analyzed, et cetera. So I think you get the point, but it's really to truly frame it and say, how do I sell this to you in terms that truly benefit you, not me, in a sense.
Very good point, is that your program staff, like if you want stories from them, you have to figure out what they want from you. And it's not just money. It might be to the opportunity to shine as someone working in programs, or a docent, or
Or
yeah.
it could be saying, in this engagement, I'm imagining a higher ed, talking to alumni relations, and alumni relations says, we don't want you to engage them in X, Y, and Z way because we're engaging them, about their intent to lean in. You could say, well, by the way, I was intending in this process, while I was asking them about their major giving intentions and their story, I was going to ask them if they would consider giving students internships, if they wanted to take on any volunteer opportunities, if they wanted to come to the next alumni event. Would that be okay if I asked them that too?
I'm curious for the
I
participants.
think,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I think, Catherine, one of the things in higher ed, which is probably you already do, or is, I think if you can be in departmental meetings, so they see you as a member of the team, and even if all you're doing is listening, it's obviously giving you some insight as to what is going on. I think the challenge is, at the same time, ideally, if you can find some easy victories, then you're more likely, right, to, but there are also obviously people who like, well, I want the money, but they just don't want to do, they don't, I can't be bothered to meet with this person. And sometimes you're not going to be able to, convert someone. You can rationally explain to them, this could really facilitate this research program you're doing, and here is why I could help you. But if the person is just, I don't know, completely introverted and they just don't want to do it, you can't force anyone, right? Just you can't force someone to. But I'd say if you can get in department meetings, or get meetings with the people who are going to be in the know about things at your particular campus, then they see the value and who you are. You're not just this person. And I'm actually having a conversation where I work, that I feel that any fundraiser that wants to, right now we have assigned fundraisers for particular departments. And the idea is that if one person goes, there's a document and they can share. But what I can tell you from experience is that while the document is on Google Drive, say, and information might get added to the agenda that's put there, not everything does. And because someone who's inputting doesn't necessarily. So I felt, as many were a small fundraising shop. If people want, they should, be able to go. They don't have to talk, but just to be present, to absorb. And then the other thing, I don't know if it's possible, is we have reached out, like we have a clinics program. So we are now invited to hear the presentations by the students and things like that. So they're seeing us actively engaged and
Are you the leader of the team? You're the leader of the shop, right, Steve?
No.
Okay.
No.
Where are you, Steve?
I'm at a small school, Harvey Mudd College. So it's different from, I worked at a large university.
Yeah,
but
no, I'm at a small college too.
well, we can talk offline.
Okay.
But I think those are the kinds of things. I don't know if that's what Greg and Jeff and Jen and everybody here is talking about. But for higher ed, that's, we went into a first year biology class, the lab. And I think the faculty member appreciated that. And frankly, the students are remarkable.
Right.
They explain things that I would not, you know,
Right.
they were doing something with DNA and,
Right.
you
No,
know.
it's definitely, it's a win-win to be more present. And because when I've gone on into those meetings or classrooms or tours of facilities, I get re-energized and really excited about what we have to offer. I will say that the pandemic threw a real wrench in that. Before the pandemic, I was just showing up at the different departmental presentations and they'd say, "Oh, you're from advancement? Oh." And
Yeah,
it's wonderful. And now we're getting back into being able to do that. It's really important.
yeah, because I always say I would like talking points. So if I'm going to tell someone, well, when we meet, I want to give you an update about the college, I want to know I mean, there may be talking points I want because the person already has a particular areas that they support significantly. But if it's a first interaction with us, I definitely want some general things that we want to make sure all of our people, you know, when we visit with them, they know some specific things. But sometimes you get those and sometimes you don't.
So now I see a lot of comments. I wasn't able to look at the chat, but it looks like, okay, well, I'll read these later, but I wonder if anybody has some final words they want to share and then we'll wrap up. But I was a little nervous before this, to be completely honest, because I didn't know what people would think. And some people are really beholden to the traditional ways and whatever's in their CRM and how, you know, this is the way we do it. So I'm generally thankful. I'm very thankful, actually, that you all took it in stride and actually see some value in what I'm working on. I'm going to continue to massage it and tweak it. I'm actually writing a book on this because I'm calling it at least for now, since my first book was called Engagement Fundraising, I've been calling this the Engagement Fundraising Operating System. EFOS would be the acronym, I guess, if that catches on. But it can always change. So feel free to let me know if you think there's a better, but the word moves management, that phrase is not what I will assign to this. I don't like the idea of moving people. I like the idea of supporting them and helping them move themselves. So any final words or thoughts from anybody? Engagement management. Yeah. It is managing engagement, huh? All right. So without any other final words, I will thank our little tribe that I will encourage you to remember to encourage your friends, colleagues to join us. Let's see. Oh, and take the survey when you leave. I'm always available if you want to contact me privately through LinkedIn or just through email and such. And I thank you for being subscribers, customers, e-course takers, and all that. It's really a pleasure. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you. Bye.